Hey guys, you're welcome back to my channel. Today thank you so much for stopping by. In this video we'll be cutting and sewing this very stylish dress that you can see on your screen. So I'll start by drafting on my pattern paper first before transferring to my fabric, and we'll be drafting out the front first. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is to mark half an inch. This half an inch is going to serve as my guideline. Okay, I'll mark like this and I'll roll a straight line across. The next thing I'll do is to take my neck width. So I want the neck width to be 4 inches, but I'll be taking that on the neck area. So what I'll do is to add 1 inch to that 4 inches, making it 5 inches. So I'm going to place 5 inches from this center front. The 1 inch that I added is going to serve as my dart allowance. Okay, so I'm taking 4 inches because I want the neck to be really wide. I don't want it to choke me. Okay, so I went ahead to indicate the 5 inches on that line. The next thing I'm doing is to determine the length of my turtleneck. So I'm using 1 inch for the turtleneck. What I'm doing is placing my tape on this straight line and I'm marking 1 inch all the way like this. After doing that, I'm going to connect. I'm going to roll a straight line across. Okay, so we have the turtleneck line. The next thing I'm going to do now is to take half of my shoulder measurement. Okay, so half of my shoulder measurement is 8 inches, but since I'll be taking that on the neckline area, I'm going to add 1 inch to it, just like I did for the starting line. Okay, so instead of placing 8 inches and placing 9 inches, I'm going to indicate 9 inches with a dot. After doing that, I'm going to go down on that dot by 1 inch for my shoulder slope, and I'll slant from that point to meet my starting line. Okay, so just look at the way I'm slanting from that point to meet the turtleneck line. Okay, so guys, the next thing I'll do is to mark half of my round armhole circumference. So my round armhole circumference is 16 inches. 16 divided by 2 is 8 inches. Okay, so I'm placing my tape after the shoulder slope. I went ahead to mark 8 inches. Okay, so I'm going to place my tape back on my shoulder line. What I have there is 9 inches. Okay, so I'm going to place the same 9 inches on this 8 inches mark, as you can see me doing. I'll make sure what I have is 9 inches. Okay, so I'm going to connect the 2 dots into a straight line like this. After doing that, I'm going to roll a straight line across that point because that is where my armhole is going to sit. After doing that, guys, I'll go ahead and start taking my point. Okay, so guys, I'll place my tape on the second line. I'm not extending it to the turtleneck line because it's not included. Okay, so I'll start taking my point. The distance from my shoulder to my bust point is 10 inches. Distance from my shoulder to my under bust point is 13 inches. Distance from my shoulder to my waist point is 16 inches. The distance from my shoulder to my hip point is 24 inches. So after marking all these points, I went ahead to roll straight lines across, as you can see me doing. Okay, so go ahead and label your lines. I have the chest line, which is the armhole line, the bust line, the under bust line, the waistline, and the hip line. Okay, so I've marked my hip line, which is 24 inches. I also went ahead to roll a straight line across, and I labeled it my hip line. So guys, next thing I will do is to mark my dress length. Okay, so I want my dress length to be 38 inches. Okay, so go ahead and determine the length you want for your dress and add your hemming allowance to that measurement. The next thing I did was to go down on this straight line. I placed my tape on the straight line and I marked the middle point. What I have on the straight line is 8 inches. Half of it is 4 inches. I indicated the 4 inches. On that 4 inches dot, I came inward like this by half an inch. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to connect from the shoulder slope to meet that half an inch, and from there to the armhole area like this. After doing that, guys, next thing I'm going to do is to mark half of my nipple to nipple measurement. So whatever half of your nipple to nipple measurement is, go ahead and add half inch to it. So the nipple to nipple measurement I'm working with is 7 inches. Half of it is 3.5 inches. So I added half inch to that 3.5 inches, making it 4 inches. So I'm placing the 4 inches on my bust line on the under bust line, on the waistline, and on the hip line. Okay, after placing the 4 inches, I'm going to connect into a straight line. So the half an inch I added is what I'll use to stitch back this dart. Okay, I hope you guys understand. So whatever your nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2 is, go ahead and add half an inch to it and then place it. After connecting my dots into a straight line, the next thing I will do, as you guys can see on the thumbnail, there is a wealth pocket on the side of the dress. So I want to determine where the wealth pocket will be. Okay, so go ahead and do that where you want to place your wealth pocket. So what I did was to go up by about 4 inches from the hip line, and I'm going to use my freehand to just create something that looks like a pocket on that area. Okay, but make sure you go out by your dart leg. Okay, just look at what I'm doing. Okay, I'm trying to determine the length of the wealth pocket and the wideness. Okay, so I'm using 1 inch as the length, as you can see me doing. I'll just use my freehand to create something. Okay, after doing that, I'm going to now extend this dart leg. Okay, just look at the way I'm doing it, and there's a little space between the pocket and the dart leg. Okay, so that's where the pocket is going to be placed when you're sewing. Okay, so after doing that, guys, next thing I'm going to do is to take in my darts. To do that, I'm going to take in half an inch on both sides of the waistline, and on the other bust line too, I'll take half an inch on both sides of this straight line, and then I'll connect like this. So guys, we are doing a princess dart bustier for this front part. So what I'll do is to connect from my dart leg to the center of this armhole. Remember, we marked the center of the armhole while we're drafting out the armhole. So I'm using the curved part of my ruler to just connect like this. So whatever you do, make sure it's not as sharp as mine. You can see that the curve is looking really sharp. If it's sharp, go ahead and blend it. So what I'll do is to now connect from the under bust line to meet the bust line like this line should not be too curvy and it should not be too straight. Okay, so I'll connect like this. After connecting, I'm going to blend it, okay, with my hand. I'm just going to blend this sharp edge that you can see. I'll blend it in like this. Okay, guys, the next thing I'll do is to extend this line that I have on the armhole area, just so when I join, the one underneath is not going to become short. Okay, so I'm going to extend from this armhole area by 1 inch, and then I'll use my ruler to connect it like this. After doing that, guys, I'm going to now connect it back to the armhole area. So this is going to be the new armhole area. Okay, so before I connect, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. Okay, so I'll come down by 1 inch to avoid gaping on the armhole area by the time I stitch. Okay, so I'm going to connect it back like this. Okay, after doing that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and start placing my measurements. So on the bust line, I'll place my bust circumference divided by 4, and I'll add my stitching allowance. On the under bust line, I'll place my under bust circumference divided by 4. I'll replace my dart and I'll add my stitching allowance. On the waistline, I'll place my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll also replace the dart and I'll add my stitching allowance. On the hip line, I'm going to add 4 inches to my hip measurement. So let's say if your hip is 36 inches, go ahead and add 4 inches to it. So it's going to be 14 inches. Then divide the 14 inches by 4, place it, and then place your stitching allowance. So that's the trick to make the hip area really curvy. So what you do is to add 4 inches to your original hip circumference, then divide it by 4 and then place it. After placing it, go ahead and also add your stitching allowance. So after doing that, I went ahead to connect from the bust to the waist and from the waist to meet the hip area. And as you can see the curve that I have on the hip area, what I did was to place the same thing that I have on the hip line. I placed it on the base and I connected it down. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to extend this dart leg, okay, to meet this part like this. So guys, after connecting the dart, I'll also go ahead and connect this new armhole. So I'm going to place my ruler like this, and I'll connect from that dart leg. You know, I came down by 1 inch. I'll connect from that 1 inch into this other point like this. So we have the new armhole we're not making use of this other one again. Okay, after doing that, guys, on the neckline area, I'm going to go down from this neckline by half an inch. So I'm taking out half an inch from the turtleneck because I don't want it to choke me. I want the neckline to be a little bit free. Okay, so I'll just connect it back like this. Okay, after doing that, guys, I'm going to cut this part out. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut. Pay close attention so you know where to cut. So guys, I'm done cutting and this is what I have. You can see that I didn't slash it to the base. Okay, I just went ahead to open up the dart. So when I'm cutting on my fabric, I'm going to cut out like this. Okay, so go ahead and draft out the back. So guys, for the back, I'm going to repeat the same thing that I did for the front. I'll go down by half an inch. This half an inch is going to serve as a guide for me to start placing my measurement. I'll connect like this and I'll roll a straight line across. The next thing I'm going to do now is to go down by 1 inch. Okay, so this 1 inch is the length of my turtleneck. So I'll mark 1 inch all the way like this and I'll also roll a straight line across. So the back of the dress has a zipper. So what I'll do is to mark my zipper allowance. I'm using 1.5 inches as my zipper allowance. So I'm marking 1.5 inches all the way down to the length of my pattern paper and I'm going to connect into a straight line. After doing that, guys, I'll go ahead and start placing my measurements. So all the measurements I'll be placing, I'll place after the zipper allowance. The zipper allowance should not be included in your measurements. Okay, so what I'll do now is to take my neck width measurement. Remember, while we're drafting for the front, I took 5 inches because I said I'll be taking that on the neckline area, 1 inch that, but for the back we don't need any that, so I'm placing 4 inches, which is the exact width of my neckline. Okay, so the next thing I'll do is to place my shoulder measurement on this shoulder line. Remember, I also took 9 inches because I wanted to use 1 inch as my dart intake for the back, for the front, sorry, but I'm not going to take out any dart for the back. So I'm just going to place half of my shoulder measurement, which is 8 inches. I'll indicate the 8 inches with a dot. On that dot, I'll go down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope and I'll slant from that 1 inch to this 4 inches on this turtleneck line. Okay, so I'll slant like this. After doing that, guys, next thing I'll do is to go down from the shoulder slope by half of my round arm or circumference. So half of my round arm or circumference is 16 inches. 16 divided by 2 is 8 inches. As you can see, I'm placing my tape after the shoulder slope, so I'm going to mark 8 inches. Okay, and I'm going to place my tape on the shoulder line. What I have is 8 inches. I'll mark the same 8 inches on that point. Okay, I'll confirm that what I have is 8 inches. I'll indicate the 8 inches with a dot. After doing that, I'm going to connect from the shoulder slope to meet that 8 inches mark like this, and then I'll roll a straight line across. Okay, so guys, after doing that, the next thing I'll do is to start taking my point. So I'm taking my point from this second line, which is my shoulder line. The distance from my shoulder to my bust point, 10 inches. Distance from my shoulder to my under bust point, 13 inches. Distance from my shoulder to my waist point, 16 inches. Distance from my shoulder to my hip point is 24 inches and my dress length is 38 inches. I'll go ahead and roll straight lines across and I'll label my lines. So I have my chest line, which is my armhole line, my bust line, my under bust line, my waistline, my hip line, and my dress length. Okay, the next thing I'll do is take half of my nipple to nipple measurements, okay, plus half an inch, just like we did for the front. I'll place that on the bust line, on the under bust line, on the waistline, and on the dress length. After doing that, I'll connect the 4 dots into a straight line. So guys, next thing I'll do is to take half an inch on the waistline. I'll take half an inch on both sides of this straight line. On the bust line, I'll also take half an inch on both sides of the straight line. After doing that, I'm going to connect into a straight line like this. So guys, after connecting, okay, you can see that I didn't extend my chest line to this center front. So my back dart is starting from the bust line, not the chest line. Okay, so I'm connecting from the bust line now to meet the under bust line like this. Okay, so after doing that, I'm going to go up from the hip line, okay, by about 4 inches. I'll indicate the 4 inches with a dot. So I'm going to extend this dart to meet this 4 inches like this. Okay, so after doing that, guys, this is what I have. So guys, next thing I'll do is to start placing my measurements. So on the chest line, I'll place my bust circumference divided by 4. I'll add my stitching allowance. On the under bust line, I'll place my under bust circumference divided by 4. I'll replace the dart and I'll add my stitching allowance. On the waistline, I'll place my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll replace the dart and I'll add my stitching allowance. On the hip line, I'll add 4 extra inches to my original hip circumference and I'll divide it by 4. And that is what I'll place on the hip line. So guys, that 4 extra inches that I added to my hip line is the trick for this dress. As you can see the thumbnail, the hip area is really curvy. So once you add that allowance, you curve it out using your ruler and it's going to give you that curvy effect. Okay, so I'll connect from there to the base. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to place my tape on this straight line and I'll mark the middle point. I'll connect from the middle point to meet the chest line like this, as you can see. So we have the armhole. Okay, so the next thing I'll do is to adjust my zipper area. So what I'll do is to extend the waist line like this, and what I have on this waistline for my zipper allowance is 1.5 inches. I'm going to reduce it by half an inch. Okay, this is to avoid zip bulge. So when I fix my zipper, it's not going to bulge on this waist area. So I took out half an inch. I'm going to connect the half an inch like this, as you can see me doing. I also connect from that point like this to the end of my pattern paper. Okay, so once you fix your zipper, it's going to lay flat. Okay, so guys, for the base of the dress, you can decide to do an A line, which is what I'm going to do when I'm sewing. Okay, but I'll cut this out first. When I'm cutting on my fabric, I'm going to make the base into an A line shape. Okay, so for the neckline, you can decide to also go down by half an inch, just like we did for the front, but I didn't do that for mine. I should have done that. Okay, so what you're going to do is to cut. Okay, so we're not going to split these darts on this pattern paper. We're going to cut it out on our fabric. We'll do that in the next tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, leave your questions in the comment section.